What if the person you see in the mirror isn't real? What if they're just a distorted reflection, a funhouse mirror version of you created by a glitch in your own mind? For years, I absolutely believed the lies my reflection told me. I was convinced that the quiet, constant hum of not being good enough was just a fundamental part of who I was. I know that feeling of always being on the outside looking in, of seeing a version of myself that felt broken and deeply flawed. It wasn't until I stumbled upon the psychological secrets behind this phenomenon that I finally learned how to see my true self. And today, I'm sharing those secrets with you. Have you ever felt like you're living an almost life? You're almost where you want to be. You've almost hit that goal. You're almost the person you dream of becoming. This gap, this space between the person you are and the person you want to be, is exactly where a distorted self-image puts down roots. It's a deeply inaccurate and intensely negative view of yourself, your looks, your skills, your worth. It's like an invisible force that puts a giant magnifying glass over your flaws while completely ignoring your strengths. For me, this showed up as a relentless inner critic. I remember getting a big promotion at work, and my very first thought wasn't, "Yes, I did it," but, "Oh God, when are they going to figure out I'm a total fraud?" Someone would give me a compliment, and I'd feel this immediate wave of guilt, as if I'd somehow tricked them. Social events felt like a minefield. I'd walk into a room, and my brain would scream that every single eye was on me, judging every little imperfection. My anxiety would kick in, telling me to just find a corner, avoid eye contact, and disappear. This isn't just being shy, it's a symptom of a much deeper cognitive glitch. It's the result of a self-image that's been warped by past experiences, societal pressure, and years of faulty mental programming. I was stuck in a feedback loop where my negative beliefs felt like they were coming true, not because they were, but because I was acting like they were. Maybe you know exactly what that feels like. The sheer exhaustion of fighting a battle inside your own head. The loneliness of feeling like no one could possibly understand the noise. But what if I told you that noise isn't you? It's just a program, and any program can be rewritten. Before you can rewrite the program, you have to understand the code and the psychological secrets. A few powerful psychological ideas explain exactly why our minds create these distorted self-portraits. Getting a handle on these is the key to taking back control. The first secret is found in cognitive behavioral theory, or CBT. CBT says our minds have these default brain glitches, or cognitive distortions. These are basically just faulty patterns of thinking that keep a negative self-image running. One of the biggest ones is negative filtering. This is when your brain acts like a colander. It catches every negative comment or self-critical thought, but lets all the good stuff, compliments, achievements, wins, slip right through. Another classic is all or nothing thinking. This is the perfectionist's trap. If you're not perfect, you're a complete failure. There's no in-between. Made one tiny mistake in a presentation? Well, the whole thing was a dumpster fire. Ate one cookie? Your entire diet is ruined. These traps create a self-image that's wildly out of focus because it's built on exaggerated negatives and dismissed positives. The second secret comes from the legendary psychologist Carl Rogers. He gave us this brilliant concept called incongruence. Rogers believed we all have two selves: our actual self, who we are, warts and all, and our ideal self, who we think we should be. A distorted self-image happens when there's a huge gap, an incongruence between these two. It's kind of like the thermostat in your house. Your ideal self is the temperature you set. Let's say you've set it to a perfectly confident, successful, and beloved person. This is like setting the thermostat to an impossible 120 degrees. Your actual self, which naturally includes moments of doubt and failure, is the real temperature in the room. When your mind feels that massive gap between the goal and the reality, it freaks out and triggers feelings of shame, anxiety, and inadequacy. It's that feeling of not being good enough. The problem isn't that you're fundamentally flawed. It's that the target you've set for yourself is fundamentally inhuman. The third and most modern secret is social comparison theory, which has been put on steroids by social media. Our brains are wired to compare ourselves to others to figure out where we fit in. But today, we're not just comparing ourselves to the neighbors. We're comparing our messy, real, behind-the-scenes lives to the perfectly curated, filtered, and photoshopped highlight reels of millions of people online. This nonstop flood of unattainable standards for beauty, wealth, and happiness pours gasoline on the fire of incongruence. Study after study shows a direct link between time spent on social media and higher levels of anxiety and inadequacy. We're comparing our rough draft to someone else's final copy, and it's wrecking how we see ourselves. To reprogram your mind, knowing the why is empowering, but the real change begins with the how. The best part is, your self-image isn't set in stone. It's flexible. You can become the architect of your own mind. Here are 4 practical steps you can take to start recalibrating your reflection, starting today. Step 1 is to become a thought investigator. You can't change a pattern you don't know is there. So, your first mission is to catch your cognitive distortions in the act. For 1 week, keep a note on your phone or in a journal. Every time you feel that sting of anxiety or self-criticism, pause and write down the exact thought that caused it. Later, look at your list and play detective. Ask yourself, is this negative filtering? Is this all or nothing thinking? Am I just making up a story about what someone else thinks? Simply naming the pattern starts to strip it of its power. You begin to see these thoughts not as facts, but as bad habits. Step 2 is to argue with yourself. Once you've caught a negative thought, your next job is to put it on trial. If the thought is, "I'm such a failure," cross-examine it. Where is the hard evidence that I am a total failure? You'll probably find that these big, dramatic judgments are standing on very shaky ground. Then, you have to present counter-evidence. What are some things I've succeeded at? What am I proud of? This isn't about toxic positivity. It's about being more balanced and realistic. Swapping a thought like, "I'm a failure," with, "I'm human and I'm learning from my mistakes," is a game changer. Step 3 is to redefine your ideal self. So much of our pain comes from chasing an unrealistic ideal. It's time for a thermostat adjustment. Take a minute and actually write down what your ideal self looks like. Is this person flawless? Do they never fail? Is everyone a fan? If your ideal self is an impossible superhero, you're just setting yourself up to feel bad. The goal is to build an ideal self based on your values, like being a resilient person, a kind person, or a brave person, not on impossible outcomes like being perfect. A healthy ideal self isn't a destination, it's a direction, one that leaves plenty of room for being human along the way. Step 4 is to practice unconditional self-kindness. This is the antidote to incongruence, another gem from Carl Rogers. It simply means treating yourself with the same compassion you would show a good friend. When you mess up, instead of beating yourself up, try saying, "That was really tough, and I did the best I could." Or even just, "Well, that didn't go as planned. It's okay." This practice of self-compassion closes the gap between your actual and ideal self, not by demanding that you change, but by changing how you relate to yourself. As I started actually doing these things, something amazing happened. The critical chatter in my head started to fade. It didn't disappear overnight, but it got quieter. When I walked into a room, instead of bracing for judgment, I started looking for a friendly face. I began to see my accomplishments not as lucky breaks, but as proof that I was capable. The person in the mirror slowly began to change. My face didn't change, but the way I saw it did. I was no longer looking at a checklist of flaws. I was looking at a whole person. A person who was trying. A person who was learning. A person who was enough. Right here, right now. The reflection didn't change. My ability to see it clearly did. This journey of reprogramming how you see yourself is one of the most important ones you'll ever take. It's not always easy, but it is so worth it. As you start trying these steps, you'll have these little epiphany moments. They will be flashes of clarity where you see a limiting belief for what it is and feel its power over you just dissolve into the air. I would love to hear about one of those moments. Share one thinking trap you recognize in yourself in the comments below. Talking about this stuff is how we remind each other that we're not the only ones feeling this way. And if this was helpful, please subscribe and turn on notifications. We're going to keep exploring the psychology of a healthier mind, and I don't want you to miss it. The biggest secret about your distorted self-image is that it's built on a foundation of lies. The lies of your brain glitches, the lie of a perfect ideal you're supposed to be, and the ultimate lie that you are anything less than whole and worthy, exactly as you are. You are not that distorted reflection you see on your worst days. You are the one looking back at it, and you have all the power to change what you believe. The journey to seeing your true self starts right now. If this hits you differently than you expected, you know what to do. I hope you want more psychology that actually helps you see and understand yourself better. Leave a comment with one thing you're done hurting your self-image about, because trapped in constant self-image distortion dies in daylight. If you've been feeling like you've been in the dark, you've been there long enough.